Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are covering the Dallas Stars for the 2022 recap and 2023-24 um, upcoming season. I'll jump straight into the recap. This was we're getting into the best end of the teams now. Um, so yeah, this is just a team that played an absolute phenomenal 2022-23 season. They finished eighth overall in the standings, 47 wins, 108 points. They were second in the Central, just behind Colorado. And yeah, I mean, they were probably the best in the West for quite a large period of last season. They had a little bit of a dip there where they just struggled. Um, I think they were going through a bit of a dip at the same time Winnipeg had just um, Dallas came out of theirs, whereas in Winnipeg not so much. So they managed to regain traction on their season, and it it didn't really affect them too much. Potentially cost them that first spot in the Central, which could have maybe changed their fate. I mean, Colorado did lose to Seattle in the end, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise finishing second. But yeah, so they finished second in the Central, and then they go on to face the Minnesota Wild in the first round, which they defeated them in 6 games. And then they moved on to the second round, where they the newcomers, the Seattle Kraken, who were just coming off of an absolute phenomenal series against Colorado and beating them in 7 games, knocking out the defending champs. And Seattle took it to Dallas, but Dallas ultimately just too good, getting it done in 7 games. And then unfortunately, they fell victim to the ultimate Stanley Cup champions in the end in the West final, Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. Dallas' season was absolutely phenomenal, though. Great feat to make it to the Western Conference Finals. They were extremely competitive. Probably just a little bit disappointing because they did, for a lot of it, look like they were going to be um, ultimately the best team in the West for quite a long time. I know Jaden had them pretty much winning the cup. Um, he was a big fan of them, and I do agree. Um, they were pretty strong in all the numbers that you can see on the right hand corner there. Their power play was fifth in the league, penalty kill third in the league, goals for seventh, and goals against was third in the league, and that was off the back of some just stupidly strong goaltending by Ottinger, and actually some really good backup goaltending from Wedgwood, which weirdly made one of the better goalie tandems in the league. So yeah, unfortunately, it came to an end in the final, but all in all, absolute stellar season from the Dallas Stars. They've still got a fantastic lineup, so there's no reason they won't do it again. But to go through that lineup and what it's looking like it'll be in the 2023-24 season, I'll hand you off to Jaden.
Alrighty, woohoo! All right, let's go. So just slightly over the salary cap, 300,000. Roster size maxed out at 23, and then onto the actual lineup. So you got Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski on the first, Ben, Johnston, and Dadanov on the second, Marchment, Duchesne, Seguin on the third, Smith, Faxa, and Delandria on the fourth. Duchesne and Smith being the additions through signing. Defenders, you got Suda, Heiskanen, Lindell, Hakanpää, Lundqvist and Lundqvist because that's how you want to do your round out of your defenders. Goalies, obviously just spoken about Ottinger and Wedgwood. Very good goaltending tandem last year. I don't expect any reason why it won't be this year. Scratches, Steele, Karlstrom, Hanley, and Beiruther. And then on to notable losses. A decent sized list here, not too crazy of notable losses though. Will Butcher, Domi, Gardner, Gleason, Glendenning, Shea, Tuft, and Miller. So probably Miller and Domi, your big ones there. Most likely, Miller's not great, good depth, but Domi, obviously was a bit of a rental, so it's not a huge loss, but it's still a decent player. And then, yeah, as Nick went through. Great power play, great penalty kill, just great 5-on-5 as well. Biggest note from last year is probably they just need to get it done in OT more than they did. So like they had 14 OT losses. I think they went to OT like 22 times or something like that.
Yeah,
So
22.
yeah, so they just needed a little bit more. You get 50-50 on that. That boosts your standing up quite a bit. And look, ultimately, my favorite team to win the cup this year as well. Just because I don't see them taking a huge step back. Granted, it's a team with Ben and Sagan on it with those contracts, but I feel like they could get it done. And Duchesne's a great addition. Smith for the depth, great addition. So don't really take too big of a step back. They are a little bit older with Ben and Sagan and whatnot, but I feel like they can get it done. And before I hand it off, they're a team that runs 4 lines and 3 defensive lines. It's not top heavy on either side, so they really do rely on their depth, and they have the depth. And I think that plays true into why they ran so far in the playoffs is because you can rest your star players. I would maybe like to see Hints and stuff get a little bit more ice time, uh, just because of how deadly they are. But then you risk injuring them and stuff, and they're not playing as fast as at their best. So yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to just on that time on ice. You do have to question it. Like Jason Robertson, 1850 average time on ice for 109 points. Like he topped their time on ice for forwards. And the next, best was Pavelski and Hints at like 1733, 1743. But the points they're putting up for the time, like that's a lot of teams, that's their second line ice time. Like you go have a look at McDavid and Dreisaitl, the average time on ice that they'd be putting up per game for the amount of points they put up, that'd be I haven't got the exact numbers, but that'd be well into the 20s for average time on ice. So
well,
yeah,
yeah,
for
McDavid
the
started playing
production,
PK as well, so like,
yeah, I think at one stage they were playing 25, 26 minutes a night, those two. So yeah, it's just incredible for how well rounded it is. And it's one of the reasons why, yeah, I said they were far, but it's how they've done it that I quite like it. I know people will have their own opinions on Matt Duchene and all the rest of the stuff, but they pick up a guy who puts up reasonable amount of points. I mean, he put up 22 goals and 56 points last season. And they pick him up for $3 million. He's going to play on the third line. Maybe he might swap with Wyatt Johnston. I dare say Johnston's going to continue his upward trajectory, and I think he's only going to get better. So I don't see that really happening. But if Johnston does happen to struggle a little bit, maybe in his second year, Duchesne can step into that second line. So you look at that first, second, third line center. Like Duchesne fits that role so well, and for $3 million for a 1 year contract, it's just brilliant. They did the same thing with Dandanov. He's 2.2 mil. He's a solid player. Come into the lineup. Ryan Suter was the same thing as well. Basically just they were disposed from other teams, and they picked these guys up and turned them into quite serviceable players. So I expect them to do the same with Matt Duchene. To me, I feel like that's a fantastic pickup. Like that was an incredible pickup in my mind. I think third line, $3 million. He's probably going to put up 45, 50 points this season, which might not sound huge, but for $3 million on your third line, that is extremely serviceable. And if you do happen to have any top end injuries, you do have him to step up and play more ice time. So yeah, like it's just a well-rounded team. They haven't had to do much. They didn't lose much in the off season, as you stated. Ultimately, I just feel like they are set up for another good run in the postseason. Like
yeah,
they're going to be one of the better teams in the West again. And with
yeah,
Vegas potentially falling off a little bit, I don't think they'll fall off a lot. That could just be what they need. to go to the next level and make that cup final.
Yeah, well, they need to start defy aging a little bit. Like you got Pavelski, who's on the older end, Seguin and Ben, so they need to defy aging just a little bit. I know Dallas fans a little bit salty with Ben after coming back, and then they lose with him coming back. So it is what it is. That was an interesting stat I did have for Ben and Seguin is that Jamie Benn had 0 goals and Seguin had 1 goal in 5-on-5 in the playoffs. So overall, Ben had 3 and Seguin had 5. But in 5-on-5 in the playoffs, 0-on-1. So they're having to rely on special teams, either 4-on-4, 5-on-4 power play, something like that. And from two basically $10 million contracts, you need that type of production. So it's yeah, that is just the drawback. That is why a lot of fans don't like their contracts, obviously. So that is the hard part. You already touched on Duchesne being a solid center for them, great depth, great addition. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is they also had 6 shutouts in the league, so they were equal third in the best in regards to shutouts. And that does go onto Ottinger, Wedgwood, but just also the defense and the defensive system they played. They reduced goals. A lot of points during the season, though, issue was scoring goals as well, and a lot of time they'll go to OT. As we said, 22 games in OT, and I know playoffs OT is different to regular season, but they kind of need to. And I'm surprised they're not better in regular OT because of players like Robertson, Hintz, and Heiskanen. But it is what it is. You can't build around it too much because the playoffs is completely different, and it doesn't have that 3-on-3 ice. So you just got to add a little bit to that, just maybe in structure. But that's where you edge a few more points in the regular season. In regards to playoffs, it was just a little bit of consistency. I think that plagued them a little bit in the regular season as well. It's just they'd go on a stretch and be all right, but then they'd just drop back a little bit and then go a little bit and drop back. And I feel like that's just where they were going, and rotating and spinning the wheel sometimes. And I feel like if they can just nail that in the coffin, this is probably the deadliest team in the West, in my opinion, just because of the depth, the strength of the top lines, the goaltending situation, and it's hard to find faults really with it. Besides the commentator having to call Lundqvist and Lundqvist, like that. Good luck with that, but yeah, it is one of my favorite teams in the West to go deep into the playoffs again. Whether they do it or not is another question. Obviously, they've got to come up teams against Avs and Vegas and whatnot. But
Like it's not
yeah,
simple.
from the notable losses, they don't get worse. They add Duchesne, so they add depth, and he's only 3 million. It's for 1 year, so it's no risk. Basically all reward, and you can flip him if anything went bad. It's just the Ben and Seguin situation on. Do you want to keep running them as your captains and whatnot? Is it time to change the reins and maybe have hints or like I'm a big lover of Pavelski, but obviously he's 1 year UFA. He's getting older as well. But
Well, that's what they've all said.
yeah,
Like Pavelski should take over as captain, but again, he's 39 years old.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that
do you
that
really
is the
want to?
harder part. Is that he
Yeah.
is so old, but I could see a Robert, maybe not a Robinson because I think he looks like the quieter type of person. I'm not sure how they're in the locker room, but like a hint should be able to step up. And then
Miro
Heiskanen behind him. Like those are the players that need to take that leadership role from them, and then
Yeah.
play that minimal role for Ben and Seguin. So then in the playoffs, you're not mandated to bring him back in if they're not playing well into your roster after they're injured. And yeah, like I don't know, like where do you find fault in this team? Like De Boer's done a good job, Neil's done a good job in regards to keeping a good team, especially with those 2 bad $10 million contracts basically. it's kind of like a Wild situation with just a lot of dead cap. They have no dead cap here, but those two players is kind of like dead cap. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, look, Jamie Benn still put up, 33 goals, 78 points.
yeah,
In,
yeah.
only 15 minutes time on ice. So, he is still quite a serviceable player. I think where the frustration comes from is he can just do some really stupid things sometimes, as you saw in the playoffs, sort of cost them dearly. Seguin as well, at times is just, I don't know, he's just fallen off a little bit. And yeah, having 9.8 mil wrapped up someone like that, it does hurt. But also you've got to, like, this team's still set up pretty well. Like, you've got Ben's contract comes off not next year, the year after. So they've only got this year and next year to really deal with that. Then you've got the likes of, yeah, Seguin's a little bit longer, but you know, Robertson signed on until 2026 as an RFA. Hintz is signed on for a long time. Pavelski's getting older, so eventually he'll get that. Wyatt Johnston is really the only maybe who's probably looking at somewhat of a pay rise out of most of these players anyway. So I'm not entirely sure that those those contracts are going to hurt because Wyatt Johnston is up for renewal when Jamie Benn ends. So basically, if Jamie Benn stays in Dallas, he's taking a pretty big pay cut anyway.
Hmm. So,
Wyatt Johnston will get a lot
so,
of
so
that.
is Ottinger as well. On the goaltending
Oh,
side of things.
Ottinger is yeah, but again, like you're saving 9.5 from Jamie Benn. The cap space is going to go up. You're going to get that 3.5 from Pavelski. Yeah, you've got to put that money elsewhere. But I feel like cap space isn't really going to be these guys. They've got the youngster. I know they're a bit older, but they've also got those young Robertson, Hint, Wyatt Johnston. That's probably going to be their top line for quite some time. And then they do have some other players coming through there. Their defense is all right as well. So yeah, they probably do need to win over 3, 4, 5 years, but I still think that they have 3, 4, 5 years left in them this side. And I don't think that they're gonna like Ottinger is only 24 years old, so you've got plenty of time with him.
Yeah,
As long as you can keep those prospects coming through, and filter out some of those older players. Like Pavelski might play till he's 42, 43. Who knows? The guy is absolute. He's 39 years old. He put up 77 points year.
yeah.
He's playing on the first line.
It's like
Like,
it's like Soto is 38, turning 39. Like they're defying
that's,
aging, but it takes to
yeah,
the point where do they stop defying aging,
yeah,
or they just call it quits. I know Soto has 2 years. The thing with Pavelski is replacing him. You're not really replacing him for 3.5 mil though. Like he's
no,
way and out far beyond outperforming his contract. So playing first line with 3.5 mil, it's a good day every day of the week. So he's outperforming. I just wanted to note like a couple interesting stats. They had 8 players with 50% or higher in faceoffs through the regular season and the playoffs. So
mhm,
a very very important stat to be good at, and they're doing that. A couple of their players were very high, actually, like around the 60% mark. So that is very key to getting out of your D zone, getting those structured goals in the O zone, and it's a very like it's looked at stat, but I don't feel like it's looked at enough because sometimes when you're watching it and you're experiencing the game, you can really feel that, oh my god, my team cannot win a face off, and this is why we're getting hammered. So that is a big thing, and I think that they've really nailed that down in regards to getting players for that. And then yeah, I guess the only other thing is that it's just that the salary cap situation. They're currently over with the roster size of 23, so they can either make a move, sell someone to free cap, or they can play with their scratches if they wanted 2 out of the 3 scratches. I think all of them, besides maybe one, are on one ways. I can't remember who. Karlstrom, I think, is on a 2-way contract, so Karlstrom probably play be in the minors, and then they run with Bayreuther and Steele, I think it was, on one ways. Um, if they decide not to sell, so I don't see them making really any more moves because goaltending set, defense is set, forward line set, and your depth is pretty much set. So yeah, like I can't see him make any huge trades. Unless halfway down the line they need to get rid of Ben or Seguin because they can't play for some reason. But yeah, I feel like they can keep on to their draft picks, and I know they didn't have their first round this year, but they did have last year's, and they did get a decently high prospect at 18. And I think it's Bickel or Bixel. Correct me down in the comments below and how you pronounce his name.
For
um,
sure.
but yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm very high on this team. I think they've done really good, and I can't see them not making the playoffs. I think they're just too strong, and I think they go deep in the playoffs. Basically, my favorite to win it, just because I think it's the most well-rounded team out of all the teams on the West. The Avs is really strong, but 12.6 mil for McKinnon. It takes a lot of cap from other people, so that is your problem. But you paid him
And
because
no
you won the
Landeskog.
cup. You pay him because you won
Yeah,
the cup, not because McDavid's situation. He hasn't won the cup yet. But
yeah.
yeah,
Colorado's issue is they've got no Landeskog as well, so it probably
yes,
is
as a
set
correct.
up for Dallas better than ever because I think Minnesota, we touched on a couple of videos back when we did theirs. It's tough situation for them with 15 cap held up. In literally no players. It's not like this situation where these two are actually playing. They've got 15 mil in no players. Um, so right now in that central, you've literally got the Avs who are without Landers. They're still going to be strong, but it is an issue. Minnesota who are probably stuck in that no man's land of do we sacrifice now or do we just hold on to 2025 when we get the cap and go again? And then you've got of Nashville in a sort of retool, St. Louis who are in that retool phase as well.
Mm.
Um, you got Winnipeg who I think you're going to be anywhere around that mark, and then
A lot of retooling
yeah,
in the Central. That
exactly.
like
When you look at
Chicago.
it, it's
Chicago's bouncing from their rebuild. So you're
hmm
gonna have to come up against that. I feel like you're gonna have probably out of all the divisions, maybe besides the Atlantic, you're gonna have the most surprises in the Central, just because of
yeah,
Nashville and St. Louis probably have big bounce backs, especially St. Louis. Chicago, it all really depends on how Bedard plays, like if he could carry that
yeah.
team or not, and do like a Taylor Hall.
Arizona
And
could be
Arizona
a
is
surprise.
a very underlooked at team. I think could actually make the playoffs if everything clicked.
Yeah,
So
but
the most
I still
surprises
think
in
it's
the
set up for
Central,
them.
but I feel like basically the Avs and Dallas are probably your hard rocks. Like, yeah, these teams aren't really going anywhere, and that's the thing. I feel like they've almost bought their ticket already to the playoffs. It's just making sure they've got the best playoff team, and I feel like they do. It was just really consistency that hurt them, in my opinion. And
And they just come up
yeah,
against another good, well-rounded side, right? Like we said, this is a really well-rounded side. You got four lines in the forward, three lines in defense. You've got, I never thought I'd say this, but you've got Ottinger, who's not about Ottinger, a phenomenal goaltender, but Wedgwood has become, good goaltender, a good backup goaltender, and is potentially making this one of the best goalie tandems in the league. So all across the board, they're stacked, and unfortunately for them, they just came across a better, well-rounded side in Vegas. Whereas there's question marks around how well they're going to back up, and whether they could have a Stanley Cup sort of hangover. So, if you take Vegas out of the league, like out of contention, not that they are, but if they do have a little bit of, a hangover, Dallas is probably next in line for the best all-rounded team in that Western Conference. So, Yeah, I definitely think if they're not favourites, they've got to be damn well close to being favourites for that contender.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you get good production from Ben and Seguin, like we said, I feel like Duchesne can help with that, and I don't have issues with their top line at all. Their depth is fine. Um, and obviously Ben and Seguin have no move clauses, so they can't move those players. That is unless they waived it, but I don't see that happening. So worst case scenario, it could go down really bad, especially with like Pavelski possibly could leave next year. Wedgwood may even ask if he has another great year, could ask for a pay increase and whatnot. So it could get worse from next year onwards. So I'd like to not sell the farm and go all in for this year, but I would like to see this as the year that you're really, really, really going for it. Like nothing barred, and yeah, just go from there. But let us know what you think. Your camera just cut out. It's all good. But alrighty. Yeah, let us know what you think down below in the comments section. Leave a like on the video, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll invoke all notifications until next time. Until next time, catch you guys.
There you go, guys. Bye.